Well, here we are again in Grandma's story room, Avery, and we get to read another chapter in The Wild Robot. And it's kind of chilly here today, and so I am very, very happy that I have my cup of hot tea. So, are you ready to find out what's going to happen in chapter 31, called The First Night? The stars were out. The fire was crackling in the fire pit. Roz and Bright Bill were settling into their first night in their new home. "This lodge is where we will live from now on." The robot plucked her little son from his little woven nest and placed him on the floor. "I hope you like it." The gosling did like it. He liked that it was big and warm and peaceful, and he liked knowing that the forest and the pond were just outside. And he waddled around, peeping to himself and exploring every little corner of the lodge until it was time for bed. His mother carefully laid him on a soft cushion of moss. But he didn't want to sleep there, so she put him back in his little nest. But he didn't want to sleep there either. Bright Bill looked up and said, "Mama, sit." Roz sat down. Then he said, "Mama, hold." Roz held him. The robot's body may have been hard and mechanical, but it was also strong and safe, and the gosling felt loved, and his eyes slowly closed, and he spent the whole night quietly sleeping in his mother's arms. Chapter 32, The Deer. The deer family did not run from the sound of snapping twigs and crunching leaves. They had all heard about Roz and Bright Bill, and they knew there was nothing to fear. Crown Point stood before his doe and his 3 spotted fawns. Those are little deer. And the family watched as the robot approached with the gosling on her shoulder. "Hello, dear. My name is Roz, and this is Bright Bill. We are looking for a doe named Tawny." Crown Point moved aside, and the doe silently stepped forward. "Mr. Beaver helped us build a lodge," said Roz, "and he thought you might help us grow a garden." "Mr. Beaver helped you?" came Tawny's gentle voice. "You must have done something for the beavers." "I brought them freshly cut trees," said Roz. Tawny looked at Crown Point, and the buck slowly nodded. "I will help you grow a garden," said the doe to the robot, "if you will let my family eat from it." And the robot nodded in agreement, and then she quietly led Tawny back to the nest. So little by little, Roz is making friends. Chapter 33 is the garden. After inspecting the grounds, Tawny asked Roz to remove all of the dried brambles and weeds and leaves from the garden area. She asked her burrowing friends, burrowing are the ones that dig holes in the ground, the moles and the groundhogs, to dig through the dirt and to loosen the soil. And then she asked all of her neighbors to do something rather peculiar. "Please leave your droppings around the nest. The more droppings, the richer the soil, the healthier the garden." Now, you probably may already know, but droppings is another word for animal poop. Now, you may be wondering about that, but I imagine when your dad and your mom have put gardens in, they have bought something called fertilizer, maybe something called manure. and that is bags of sometimes animal droppings because they help plants grow. Well, as you can imagine, Tawny's request got everyone's attention. The place was soon crawling with woodland creatures, curious to hear more about the garden's project. And just like that, the robot was meeting her neighbors. The plan to help her make friends was already starting to work. There was a festive feeling around the nest that day. Animals were coming and they were going and they were chatting and they were laughing. And after some pleasant conversation, each neighbor would choose their spot, leave their droppings, and be on their way, and always with a smile. "We're happy to help," said two smiling weasels after finishing up their business. "It was our pleasure," said a flock of smiling sparrows before they flew away. "I shouldn't be much longer now," said a smiling turtle as he slowly made his contribution. And as all this was going on, Roz walked around and thanked everyone. "I am not capable of defecating." That's another word for pooping, she explained. "So your droppings are most appreciated." And once the grounds were fertilized, it was time for the plants. And Tawny brought Roz and Bright Bill out to a lush meadow. And the robot sank her fingers below into the ground and felt the spongy layer of roots below the grass. And slowly, carefully, she rolled up wide strips of sod, exposing the dark, wormy soil. And she carried those rolls back to the nest and she spread them out to make a patchy lawn. Then she transplanted clumps of wildflowers and clovers and berries and shrubs and herbs until the nest was surrounded by a scraggly collection of plants. "It's not much to look at now," said Tawny, "but the grass will grow into those gaps, and the flowers and the bushes should perk up in a few days. I'll return soon to make sure it's all taking root, and before long, this will be a lovely wild garden." Let's see if we have time for another chapter. Yeah, this is a short one. Chapter 34, The Mother. Like most goslings, Bright Bill followed his mother everywhere. He was a slow, tottering little thing, but Roz was rarely in a hurry, and together they loved meandering through the forest paths and around the banks of the pond. However, they spent most of their time right in their own little garden. You see, the garden was no longer scraggly. Thanks to the robot's careful attention, it was now bursting with colors and scents and flavors, and clearly Roz was designed to work with plants. "Oh, Roz, you have been so busy," said Tawny as her family grazed on the wonderland of growing things. "This garden is glorious. You'll be seeing quite a lot of us around here." And Tawny meant what she said. Every morning around daybreak, Roz and Bright Bill would hear quiet footsteps outside the nest. And there would be Tawny and Crown Point and their fawns named Willow, Thistle, and Brook, happily nibbling at their garden. The deer weren't the only regular visitors. The beavers were quite fond of gnawing on a certain hardy shrub at the end of the garden. Digtown, the old groundhog, popped up to munch on the berries. Broadfoot, a giant bull moose, came by to chew on tree shoots. And of course, bees and butterflies were there every day, happily floating through the flowers. And there always seemed to be friendly animals hanging out around the garden. It was amazing how differently everyone treated Roz these days. Animals who once ran from the robot in fear now stopped by the nest just to spend time with her. The neighbors smiled and they waved whenever Roz and Brightbill wandered past. And at the dawn truce, the other mothers were eager to share their parenting advice. Now you make sure that Brightbill gets plenty of rest. A tired gosling is a cranky gosling. Oh yes, and when the wind starts blowing from the north, you must immediately get Brightbill to safety. North winds always bring bad weather. And you'll never be the perfect mother. Just do the best you can. All Brightbill really needs is to know that you're doing your best. No gosling ever had a more attentive mother. Roz was always there, ready to answer her son's questions, or to play with him, or to rock him to sleep, or to whisk him away from danger. And with a computer brain packed full of parenting advice and the lessons she was learning on her own, the robot was actually becoming an excellent mother. And the next time we will read chapter 35, which is The First Swim. I hope you had a good time in Grandma's Story Room. I love you.